Listen, writing a great book is hard enough, but figuring out how to actually get it into the hands of real readers without leaning hard into a trend or rewriting the same old story the industry thinks you should be telling is the real challenge. On this episode of Black in the Stacks, we're sitting down with literary agent and the mastermind behind Highly Lit, Rochelle Lynn. She's in the business of helping authors, especially authors and creators of color, ditch the hustle burnout, build brand longevity, and turn complex stories into visual gold. Rochelle has a deep rooted love for books and the business behind them. With a background bridging education, marketing, and storytelling, she brings a rare combination of creative insight and strategic thinking to the author space. She is a passionate book content creator and developmental editing student, and she's committed to growing a platform where authors don't just write, they thrive. So, good morning. How are you? Thank you for joining me.
I'm great. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So, for our listeners, just kind of give them a brief overview of who you are, what you've been doing, and what brings you to the show today.
Yeah, I am Rochelle Lynn, and I am a new literary agent. If you've been familiar with me or following my journey, I shared how a job loss in 2023 led me to falling back in love with reading, especially reading fiction and finding independent and new to me authors. From there, I kind of started getting super interested in the publishing space and figured out that I wanted to work as a literary agent and have just kind of been navigating that for the last 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, when we kind of connected, a lot of things that, I found through like your Substack and social media, really resonated with me, especially the journey to starting over. Because I know a lot of times as Black women, we get so wrapped up in our careers, and titles and salaries and things, and we inadvertently sometimes lose sight of what really makes us happy. Um, so talk about that journey for you, leaving a, thriving career, starting over, reclaiming your imagination after burnout, as you've described. So just talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I felt like I had just made a move, and that move entailed my monthly budget going up, and then the rug gets pulled a few months after this move and
Mm,
this new position, and I felt like my cup was empty. So I was consistently applying to jobs and putting myself out there. And my only escape, I felt like at the time, and for a long time, I was probably definitely on the verge of being in that girl boss era where so much of
mm,
what I was consuming was self help and professional development. And it got to a point where I just started internalizing everything. I was like, okay, well, did I not take this right step? Did I not read this and apply this properly? And so it started like I started turning on myself instead of helping myself. And so I was like, you know what? I want to start reading fiction again. And at the time, I was on TikTok, just like most everyone else. And I started coming across Book Talk. And I was like, I want to be on Book Talk. And there were two books at the time that were like heavily discussed. One of them was Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson, and the other was Ethic by Ashley Antoinette. And I was like, I have to read these books. And so I just decided to read them and start talking to my camera about it. And it just took off from there. Just grew
wow.
legs of its own.
Yeah, I love when things like that happen. It Yeah, like most people during, that 2020 pandemic time, I started doing stuff on TikTok too. And very similar for me, I saw other librarians, that were out there that were talking about, their jobs and their journey to librarianship and all of that, but they were leaving out some of the not so fun parts. And I was like, I will try my hand at being the anti like librarian, because I think it's important that people get both sides of something. And librarianship is still highly glamorized, right? Like it's library's fun, it's this, it's that. It's if you've you know, till somebody throws a chair at your head, and then, you know, yeah, it's a little scary. So yeah, I definitely resonate with that. As you're taking this journey into becoming a strategist and literary agent, can you talk about some things that traditional education gets wrong about what really makes a book connect with a modern reader?
I think that they wanna strip reality from the pages, and when you look at
Mm,
some of the books that are in YA fiction that are on the banned list, it's like, "Oh my gosh, these are amazing books with stories to tell about your journey through young adulthood to becoming an adult," and many of the themes and the topics are, um, offensive to people who haven't done their own work to work through their biases or their racism or their homophobia. And so I think where they definitely get it wrong is not wanting to tell the reality of what these kids wake up every day and see, even if it's not happening directly in their neighborhood. They can pick up their phone and be in any neighborhood or country in this world in a split second.
So as we talk a little about banned books and changing narratives and industry realities, um, I think sometimes when you have a POC author, big publishing houses or even smaller imprints too kind of want those POCs to focus on traumatic stories or, just drama across the board. There's no joy or happiness or anything like that. Um, how are you helping your clients pitch stories that are the opposite of those downtrodden things that are often associated with POCs?
I'll say from a more technical standpoint, I'm really big on selling me the story and making sure that we've also thought through, well, how do we market this? How do you sell this to me? And there's so much misinformation, disinformation, lack of information around just, the starting point, which is like your querying process. Well, how do I submit a query letter? And so, because I'm new, I have the time and the resources to kind of provide feedback and say, hey, can you go back and fix this? And so, what I'm looking for, and I think one of the ways that we're able to shift that narrative is in the sales. And if we can sell it and make it move and build readership, I think it continues to give statistical proof and the numbers are there to say, hey, we are not boxed into one particular trope or genre. We are not a monolith. We read all of the things and our life is to be celebrated.
Yeah. Um, how do you find your clients? Like, do you seek them out? Are there, authors that have come directly to you because they found you on social media? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's actually been interesting. I think people just it's been a lot of word of mouth, and a lot of just overall intrigue, just general interest in the story that the part of myself that I've given social media in this whole journey. And so I really when social media experts talk about like being known and liked and trusted, that's something that I was able to build. And so I get a lot more inbound. And so also how I positioned myself in this space, there were just other, brands and, people, decision makers who had their eyes on me. So I will say I was just fortunate to spark that know, like, and trustability some type of way.
Hmm. Yeah, when I first got on TikTok, I was following a lot of like book influencers, and there was a guy, I forget his name now, but he was teaching himself how to read.
Mhm.
And so you would go a lot. Yeah, so I was following a lot of those. And then the more I got into like digging through the algorithm, kind of filtering and training my, timeline to show me stuff that was of interest to me, the more I found those being measured with my words. Some of those super popular influencers were not to be trusted. Like they were not trustworthy. They were really truly only in it for the exposure, whatever free stuff they could get, and a check. Um, and it became a little hard to find like true, really interested, hardcore readers that, only shared their experience with a book, in the hopes of encouraging other people to pick it up too. Um, and that took a long time to kind of clean up like my follower list, to find those, really dedicated people. Um, and most of that I think is due to increasing technology, AI, all of that stuff. So how do you help your clients keep um, their marginalized stories from getting like buried in the algorithm?
Again, strategy, just being very meticulous about how they show up and the ways that they show up, letting the data really lead the conversation about when and how they're executing that marketing plan. And it isn't always front facing. So it doesn't, when I talk about like marketing plans and strategy, it's not applying all to social media. So making sure, like, I think, especially when you're an independent author, a lot of times you get focused on just getting the story published, and that's great. But I also want to make sure that your keywords are there and your metadata is on point so that when people are sitting down and going on Google and we're thinking like they're thinking, how they're searching for a book, that you populate. And
Mhm.
so I love the strategy and the workarounds, like, post it. No, I don't love it post at this time, but, posting strategies and how you show up visually, but
Yeah.
what happens in the behind the scenes of your business that make you populate in search engines and bring you up in the conversation in the genre that you're writing in. That's where I really hone in because that's where we can really take tangible facts. The numbers give us the data to let us know how to move around.
Yeah. Have you ever had a client that's been resistant to implementing the changes that you've suggested?
Oh, all the time, all the time. It happens quite regularly. I think, because a lot of us approach our creative projects as our babies, um, and that's great, but also not because a lot of times when you are treating something like your baby, you are unwilling to just you're overly protective of it and it's hard for you to see um all of the different points of view. And I think, you know, people sometimes get into things and don't understand how much it takes. So you may be looking at this creator or this indie author who blew up in like a year. I have a client now who literally dropped her first independent project like a year and a half ago, and she already has now a traditional deal and in talks for other deals. Um, so, kind of tending to your own area and doing what works for you.
Yeah. I've had clients that are resistant to things that I've suggested too. Um, and it's almost like they they don't want to relinquish control. And that's fine, but it comes at a cost sometimes.
I think for entrepreneurs, especially service based, someone who's looking to provide services in the publishing space, one thing you really want to make sure that you do, because you are going to run into the people who are just not ready to take on everything that comes with it, right? So when I first started my business, I've gone through a few different iterations like to really get it right. And I think being honest about what I can do versus what I love doing. And so not offering all of the things helps keep those type of client away from me. And also like building, I have a buyer's journey. So
Mm,
I kind of know what you need. So like there's if we're talking about like author development and brand development, helping you figure out your publishing pathways, I'm asking the questions that put you right where you need to be. And so that might just be, hey, work on this and then come back in 6 months or so. Or okay, well, let's just do a call where we spend 2 or 3 hours just going through everything in your business, and then you take those instructions and run with it. So I think that's key for entrepreneurs as well. Like, we want to help, but we can't help everyone. And the ones that we can help, we want to put them on the pathway so that they get what they need.
Sometimes it may take them, 2 or 3 tries to figure out, how to implement everything that you've suggested, and that can take a long time, especially if they're struggling to just kind of accept that these changes need to be made. So we may have some people who might be interested in your services. Using social media sometimes, it can be difficult to take deep, complex, and nuanced dialogue within a book or the story or the plot of whatever the book is. How do you help, or how would you suggest someone who is struggling to kind of find their footing with explaining what their book is about that's visually appealing but doesn't cheapen the story?
Invest in your craft. So find a way, even if you have to pay a small fee of some sort, look in your community for writers groups, look at your community college, look online with reputable writers and publishers for, that I see workshops all the time. And I think that is that's critical. That's how you also, I think there may have been mention of AI at some point. That's
Mhm.
also how you keep the appeal of AI away from your brand and your writing, because you're consistently sharpening your tool.
Let's switch a little bit and talk about some of the pathways into publishing and building and finding community within that journey. I know, and I've seen it before, like there's like split conversations between going the indie route and then going the traditional route. So, how do you help author out if they want to take on that indie role, or if they want to fight the traditional gatekeepers to, you know, get to reach their publishing journey?
It starts with answering the question of where they want to take their author career. If is this just a hobby for you, just some creative expression, or are you looking to actually build a career from this? The answer to that a lot of times helps shape that that answer.
And then I know within that sort of like publishing journey, marketing always comes up. Um, and I vaguely remember, like, maybe at this point, maybe almost 20 years ago, maybe a little less than that, but there's a concept, and I forget who first coined it, but there's a concept that says, like, there can only be one type of mentality where people in the media, kind of pluck one sort of Black person in this case, as, like, the one. And so you see them everywhere. They're the ones that getting, all the press. They're in every movie. They're guests appearing on TV shows. They're on radio. They got product placement deals. Like, they're just everywhere. And sometimes it can feel like that in publishing as well. So how do you um, how do you work with your authors, specifically the authors of color? Um, from competing against each other for the same sort of shelf placement and networking and collaboration that lifts everyone up. Like, how do you train them to stay focused on their own journey and not really worry about competing with others, even though we know that's kind of a part of the deal?
I will say that from my experience, the author and writer communities, especially in the Black independent space, are incredibly tight knit. I've had people say to me, "Hey, I don't want to do my release this day because this author, who is also my friend, I want her book to get some shine, and she releases like a week before this date. So I really haven't run into that problem. And I think that's from just, where the bulk of my client base comes from. But
Mhm.
we do create best practices, especially when we're about to do a launch or a release that kind of helps you shape how you're going to interact with everything. So I always recommend just don't go on Goodreads. Don't read the comments. You know what I mean? So even if you want to read the comments, if you cannot resist, wait at least 3 to 5 days before you do that. So just overall planning, like being proactive and not reactive, and thinking about those things that trigger you. So if you know that you are consistently going to be refreshing your Amazon dashboard to see what your sales are looking like, then why don't we take the app off the phone for the first week? So just really kind of understanding those things that trigger you and speaking to them in advance.
Is there any like sage advice that you give someone who's just stuck and can't get out of that?
Reimagine it. Create create a series, create some type of consistency, and consistency doesn't mean every day, but it does mean if you're gonna do something, or if you're gonna post every Tuesday and Thursday, then post every Tuesday and Thursday. However that looks for you, and have fun with it. I think more than anything, like, finding the joy in what you do really opens you up creatively. And sometimes the answers are right there in our face, and just not overdoing it. Just be yourself and know who you're talking to. So many times we do not know our target audience, and we need to narrow that down. So I think the tangible thing is definitely hone into who your target audience is. Like, yes, she likes to read real and raw, but I can't do real and I can't do raw. So what is that? What are we gonna do with that? And, like, the numbers, data, that's this is surprising to hear me say this, but yeah, that's where it's at. You have to know
Yeah.
you have to invest some amount of time and really kind of knowing who you're showing up for, so that they
Mhm.
could get to them in a very crowded algorithm.
Yeah. And there are specialty tools and websites that are out there that can do that for them if if they aren't ready to pay someone to do it for them. Because I've used a couple too, just kind of the free versions, and it gives you so much information, like it completely changes how, you look at, what you've been doing before. And it's amazing to see like how something as subtle as, for podcasting anyway, like where the author line is or the creator line, you can put more information in there than just your name. I did that, and within maybe 24 hours, I had a 500% like visibility increase.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
number the data will give you what you need to know. It answers all your questions.
Mhm. So speak community, you said that, in your realm, a lot of the authors just kind of, champion each other and are very supportive. So what is one book right now, by an author of color that isn't getting enough like mainstream love right now? And why are we sleeping on it, basically?
Mm. I feel like there's more than one. One that does come to my mind is Love You to Death by Christina Dodson.
She was on
Yeah.
the show.
Okay. I love that book. My girls, Zuri, and I forget the other main character's name, but they wore me out in the
Uh,
best way.
Kayla,
Kayla, yes,
Kayla,
yes.
Kayla.
They were just chaotic. They got on my nerves so bad, but
So
in
bad.
the best way. And I say this book because this book was so phenomenal. And I did an immersive read, so I did the physical and the audio, and the audio is stellar. And when I looked at and I had to have a conversation with myself at that time, because I put off reading the book because I was looking at reviews on Goodreads. And at that time, she was sitting at like a 3.5, 3.6, something like that. And to me, um, sometimes 3.5 isn't enough to make me, like it'll be on
Mhm.
my list of things to read, but I'm not gonna prioritize it. So I didn't prioritize it, and, a friend of mine told me how good it was, and I finally listened, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing," and looking at the reviews who weren't from us, right? So, like, I had all types of thoughts, like, in my
Mhm.
book business mind, I'm like, "Who was our marketing team? Who did they get this book to?" But it just did not get the hype, and I see more people are starting to pick it up and talk about it, but I still wanna talk about it more. Clearly, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She was a phenomenal guest. Like it felt like talking to a friend. But yeah, talking interviewing her, it felt just like talking to a friend. It was very like my questions were structured because I was really interested, and at the time the book had not yet come out. So we didn't do spoilers, we didn't do like a deep dive. So I am like at some point I will have her back where we can do a deep dive. If you want to join, we'll make that work too. Um, but yeah, it and I think it came like on the heels of one of them days with the Issa Rae produced film with Kiki Palmer and SZA.
And it was so it was very similar. Yeah.
Yes,
Or yeah,
but with
yeah.
yeah, with a very interesting twist towards the end there. Yeah. Um and so that I think that's kind of where people are like, well, I already watched the movie. Why do I need to read the book? You know what I mean? Um and it's not it's a similar story, but it's not the same story and it's told completely different. Um so yeah, I agree. That is one that, people are sleeping on. And from experience, I know that there are people like Goodreads has not so great filtering when it comes to reviews. And there are people who intentionally seek out, POC authors, Black authors, to discredit them, like, and have probably never even read the book. Like maybe took, whatever the book description was, if it's an indie publisher or traditional, ran it through, an AI or something and just trashed it without even reading it. And I think that that is a problem because, like you said, you went to Goodreads and you saw that rating, you were like, I'll read it later, right? And I wonder how often that happens, that we're, not reading these gems of books because, you know, like the author themselves, probably were focused on numbers.
Yeah. I think that one yeah, I have so many thoughts about that
Save them, save them. I'll put a show together. You can ask her. All right. So these are questions that I ask of every guest. What creative works are currently occupying your time? So what are you What are you reading? What are you watching, listening to? What you're working on?
Reading TED Talks and, a book, like How to Write a Book Proposal. And, I'm a mood reader, so I'm reading, um I'm reading a little bit of everything. I'm reading Gail Jones is up next on the docket for me. I'm super
Okay,
get into her catalog. Um, I have some manuscripts, so it's just a mix of
mix of things. Li-
things.
What is there anything that you just like put on TV when you're tired of working? That's just kind of like background noise, like a favorite show or anything like that?
Living single always.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a creator who kind of used or reimagined the concept of Flavor magazine for her like college final project or something. You've seen that? It's amazing. I'll put her name in the show notes because I saw the first one and I was like, ooh, I want to see where this goes because it was very well done. What's one thing you will always be proud of?
My ability to figure it out.
Mm, I think that's gonna hit hard for a lot of people because we'll be sitting sometimes like, I don't know what to do. And then you just wait and breathe. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. I'll figure it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. What's the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself?
I really nerd out on things that I enjoy. Yeah, there's a part of me that's a super nerd.
Like
Yeah,
what?
like books, just being a bookworm. Like I've always enjoyed reading, was an English teacher. But I just really get lost in a book and I could talk about books all day, every day if you let me. Yeah. So I think maybe coming back to finding some whimsy, like just reconnecting with things that truly make me happy. I started listening to audiobooks and then I started coloring. So I'm just happy and surprised that I'm able to tap into this part of myself that just is having fun.
And then lastly, where can people find you online to either connect further or follow you?
So you can find me at Rochelle Lynn. That's Instagram and Threads, and that's typically where I hang out the most. I think my TikTok is Rochelle Reads a lot, but you can just find me anywhere, Rochelle Lynn.
Okay. And you have your Substack too.
Oh, I do have my Substack, which is you'll find it if you come to Rochelle Lynn and click the link in the bio.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For more information, you can visit us online at www.blackinthestacks.com and find us on most social media platforms at Black in the Stacks.